Hi, it's James from the 11 Plus Tutors again. Today I'm going to be talking about something for the older children that's really important. It's a really important concept for the 11 Plus exam. It's thinking backwards. So the examiners know that children have been taught to do things a certain way round, but they're testing to see if they've got greater depth knowledge by asking them to do it in reverse. And kids often know about referring to this as the inverse of the operation. So let me just explain. If we've got a function machine or a number machine where we've got an operation where it multiplies by 2 and adds 4, if we put 5 in, we double it, we get 10, add 4, we get 14. But if the child's given the answer and told to go backwards and find out what the input was, what they've got to do is do the inverse, the opposite. So instead of add 4, they take 4, so that makes 10. Instead of multiply by 2, they divide by 2. That makes 5. So that's the way they can work through doing the inverse to find what the original number was for function machines or number machines. The next thing I'm going to talk about is quite a complicated concept for some kids, in that kids are told about how to do, well, they're taught how to do percentages, but there's quite a common pitfall in the exam. And the examiners will ask, normally in part B or part C of the question, if a seller is selling something for 120% profit, what was the original price that they bought it for? So what the kids got to do, what a lot of kids will do is just divide it by 5 to take 20% and then take that off, but that's the pitfall. What they've got to do is get used to writing down what it is now. What it is now is 120%. How could we get it to 100%? Because 100% is the original. Well, the way we do it is we find a factor within that we can multiply back up to 100%. And that's quite easy in this case. We could divide it by, if we divided it by 6, we would get 20%. And then once we've got 20%, it's easy then. We just multiply up by 5 to get 100%. So I'll say it again, a lot of kids will look at this type of question and say, well, you just find 20% and take it off, because that's what they've been drilled into doing. But they've got to get used to writing down, before they even do this, what is it now in percentage? And it's 120%. So to find 20%, we are not dividing by 5. We're dividing by 6. That's a really important concept for kids to grasp, especially with the kind of the greater depth percentage questions they can get. Next one is kind of reverse of average. Now kids are usually, by the time they get to the exam, they really understand that to get an average they're going to add everything up and divide to get by the number of items or data items to get the average. But what they can do in the exam is spin it upside down, and what they can say is, well, here's the average, what's the total? So in this case, we've got 20 kids who have an average of 5 sweets each. What's the total amount of sweets? Well, what you've got to do is think inverse again. Kids are taught to find average, they divide. So to find the total, we need to multiply. So it's just a case of multiplying 20 by 5, which is 100. So here I've just selected a small range of things, but it's really just to get across the point that the examiners are looking into this, and you need to be aware of this. When a kid learns to do something one way, they've really got to be able to think about it in reverse as well. That's really greater depth thinking, and that's the difference, I'm afraid, between passing and failing in a lot of cases. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to try and start pumping these out from now on. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.